The Miata is such a fun car to drive up and down the California coast with the wind blowing through my hair, but the price that we pay for the luxury of the sea breeze whipping through my quarantine hair is a downright floppy and bendy chassis. Because the Miata is a convertible, the chassis is nowhere near as stiff as it would be if it had a traditional roof. You can add a hardtop to the car to get back some of that rigidity, but then what about my hair? Well, I want the best of both damn worlds. I want a Miata that doesn't feel like the front's about to fall off, and I want to be able to take the top down and go cruising. So I went out and put together a kit of a bunch of chassis braces for about 750 bucks, and today we're going to install them. Is adding all this hardware going to actually stiffen up the chassis, or am I just going to be adding a bunch of weight for no reason? I'm Zach and this is Money Pit. Let's get stiff! Big thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring this week's episode of Money Pit. Listen up, people, there's a battle raging out there and we need your help to secure the victory. We can't win without you! Join the millions around the world who have joined War Thunder, the most extensive vehicle combat game ever made. You can help take control of battlefields in helicopters, ground vehicles, and iconic jets. Make sure you don't go into battle alone. Level your crew up and customize the 1,500 plus authentic military vehicles. So what are you waiting for? We need your help out here. War Thunder is available on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. And the best part of all, it's completely free to join the battle. Hurry up and click the link in the description below to download War Thunder for free and receive bonuses for easy wins. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this week's episode. Now back to the show.
You did.
All right, so before we go any further, we need to really understand what's going on here with the Miata's chassis. Basically, the Miata has two strong points. The firewall is strong, and this area is strong to begin with, but is especially strong and stiff thanks to this roll bar we installed last week. The weak points of the chassis are basically the rest of it. On a normal car, generally speaking, you have what's called a roof. And the roof itself plays a big role in the structural rigidity of the car. Not having anything here lets the whole thing kind of fold up and bend up on itself. So before we go any further, let's do our test and see how floppy this thing is right now. We just mounted a target to the front of the car, and then here at the back of the car, we've got a GoPro mount with a laser strapped to it that we've suction cupped to the quarter panel here. Right now, the car is at rest, it's not flexing at all, and the laser lands wherever it lands. It doesn't really matter where it lands. All we need to do is mark where it lands currently. We'll drive the car up onto the flex ramps, and we'll see how far the laser moves from that spot, which will let us know how much the rear is moving relative to the front. Then we'll install all of our chassis bracing and do the test again and see how much less the laser moves on the ramps. This is about as scientific as it gets for us. We're using lasers. Wow. You know, I expected it to be a lot worse. I mean, it's only moved maybe a quarter inch. I'm also just gonna jack this point up and see how things change over there. I also wanna jack the very front of the car from the subframe up and see how much just the frame aprons seem to bend. It seems to flop and flex in a couple different directions, but seems that the laser moves about as far away from its center point every direction that it flops. So if we can just keep that laser centered on its spot after the braces, I'll be so happy. Now let's install this shit. That's one way to do it. So to stiffen up the Miata, I put together a kit of individual pieces available online. It's not like I just bought a kit. I bought 4 individual items that I thought would add up to stiffen the chassis of the Miata. So I got a set of door bars that'll work in concert with the roll bar that we installed last week from Zarek. I got a set of cowl braces from V8 Roadsters, and I got Flying Miata's door bushings and their frame rails for underneath. Now the easiest thing to install out of that list is gonna be these door bushings, so I'm gonna start here. These are actually 3D printed out of a carbon fiber impregnated nylon, I believe. So they're very rigid. The factory ones are a metal covered in rubber, and the ones on the car are whooped. And basically they let the door kind of flop around. You hear that? That's just the door moving around in the door jamb, and it's not good. if the door is actually supported the way that it should be, it does a pretty decent job of tying together our two strong points on the car. So if we have a good bushing that's rigid and fits nice and tight, it should help the door support our car and help us with chassis stiffness. So installation process for these is super simple. You just take out the two bolts that hold the old one in and use them to install your new one right in the same place. Okay, so that position seems good. We can tighten them up. Oh, sweating. Success. That's exciting. That honestly is probably gonna have the biggest impact on my daily driving because it's gonna quiet down one of the worst rattles on this car. All right, so next up, we've got these cowl stabilizer braces from V8 Roadster. These are pretty simple and they're pretty sweet. So we take the strong section here, the firewall, and we tie it into this weak section up here. See, the firewall is very strong, but as we move forward, the frame apron, the shock tower, it's all kind of floppy. And when you hit a bump or you turn hard or you turn at all this stuff kind of wants to flex. So if we can tie it rigidly into the strong section of the firewall, then we should get less flex. Install process seems pretty straightforward. It ties into these bolts here, so I'm gonna pop those off and then we'll install the brace. But that's only part of it because it needs to tie in up here. So once it's in place, then I can drill holes for the top and then this will sandwich in that window and then everything will be tight and done. Welcome to the madness. Now we want that to be sandwiched good and tight. Well, that's one done. Let's go do the other side. So you might be wondering what the point of all this is anyway. I mean, it seems like a lot of work just to get our chassis to be stiff. What does it matter? What do you even care? Well, a lot of it has to do with predictability. I mean, your chassis, if it's flexing a lot, acts like a whole nother spring in the suspension system that you can't really account for. And that's just bad. That just makes it unpredictable. So if we can stiffen things up and lock down the chassis, it gives the suspension a really good platform to work from. Time for our frame rails. Got these from Flying Miata. These should increase overall rigidity a lot. Flying Miata says they saw a 17.5% increase on a later model Miata, which is already stiffer to begin with than this. So that's pretty impressive. They shouldn't be too hard to install. It's just gonna be a little time consuming. Gotta take the seats out, gotta take the carpet up, all that kind of stuff. First thing I need to do is the most satisfying part of all, and that's peel off this backing. Oh yeah. The idea here is that the factory frame rails on the Miata are pretty weak, and as such, a lot of them are bashed in like mine are. They made these out of stainless, and they just slip over top of these frame rails like an exoskeleton and stiffen things up. The problem is when your factory rails are so bashed that these don't fit on top of them. So I'm gonna have to get the old persuader out, bash this stuff back into place, and then these will go on top.
Jesus, dude, say something first.
Yeah, get used to that for a minute. We're gonna be doing some more. The way these are aligned on the chassis is by a series of captive nuts. The nuts that are welded into place slide into existing holes in the Miata's frame rails. All right, so we've got this thing on and our nuts are lined up, so this thing is on the car where it needs to stay. So I'm gonna put a floor jack under it to support it to make sure it doesn't shift around at all. And then I'm gonna start drilling holes and putting hardware in.
You feel me?
Can you pull your shirt so that I can see the buff forces in the back? Nice. Then we'll just put a little arrow being like, buy your buff force shirt at Demo.
And maybe put some arrows to like my biceps because of how buff I am.
Okay.
All right, so on the driver's side, we got the frame rail in place and we've got all the holes drilled. So I could just drop a bunch of hardware in it right now and tighten it all up, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go to the passenger side and get it just as far along as this side, because before I put all the hardware in and tighten everything up for a final time, I wanna paint all these bare metal holes that I just drilled, and I don't want them to rust. You know, water gets kicked up, water may rest down there, I don't know. It's just better to paint bare metal than to leave it. All right, we just got done with our frame rails and we're moving on to the last thing of the day, door bars. Pretty excited for these. I think they're gonna do a lot for chassis rigidity. They're also gonna protect me in the event of a side impact, and they're gonna look pretty sweet. First thing we're gonna do to install the door bars is remove these 3 bolts from the roll bar, because this is gonna go like that and use those same holes. Now we gotta drill 3 holes down here. On the right one? No. Just got the first door bar in and it installed super easily. Works great with the roll bar. Just had to drill a few holes and it's in. It looks cool and it doesn't look like it's going to be too intrusive. The only thing I have left to do to finalize the door bar install is trim the carpet, which I'll do, but I'm going to get the other door bar in first, then we'll do the carpets at the same time. Well, the good news is we didn't do anything today that could make it not run, so it still runs great. Now let's put it back on these flex ramps and see if we've changed how much flex there is in the chassis. Yeah, it's a little ugly dot. What are you gonna do? Is that closer? I think that's closer.
I think it's the exact same.
Yeah, I think it's like touching the laser. I think there was a gap in the, like there was a cardboard gap earlier. I do think that's a touch closer. Is it drastic? Hell no. Okay, that's in the air. What do we got? Whoa! Was that what it was like earlier? I don't even remember.
No, it was off to the left before, I think.
Well, that's cool. Thigh master, chassis master. What was this one like earlier?
I think upper left.
Well, she's dead nuts. So that laser is dead at where it started, which is awesome. That means definitely 2 out of these 3 tests we improved on. The first test, I could be convinced either way. Let me know what you think in the comments. But you know what, at the end of the day, we're just looking at a laser pointer on a piece of cardboard, and I don't really care too much about that. What I care about is how the car drives, so let's go. Ooh, ooh. You know, I'm trying to make sure I'm not imagining it, but it does feel crisper and snappier already, just kind of driving around. Let's hit this bump. Oh, not a single noise, not a single noise out of place. That's incredible. But the question is all this chassis bracing worth $750? And honestly, that's kind of a tough question to answer because that's a lot of money. But for me, it's worth it. For some increased chassis rigidity, some increased safety, and some massively decreased rattles and creaks and squeaks and noises. I can't wait to take this car into the canyons, hammer on it, and see how good it feels. I bet it's gonna feel pretty good. And I'm gonna feel pretty good because I'm gonna feel a lot safer with the new roll bar and these door bars and everything we did today. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram at Zach Job. Follow Donut at Donut Media. Bye! Check, 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 check. Hey, you want this shirt? Well, we got a limited quantity of them right now. Basically, here's the deal. The logo on the front is a little too small. So rather than throwing them away, we decided to tie-dye them. And, well, look at it. So go to donutmedia.com to get yours, but go quick, because trust me when I say they're gonna sell out fast. We don't have that many.